5, 4, 3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WAA, online at the big1050.com. And you know how we do it. In the 9 o'clock hour, we do the MGoBlog Roundtable. I'm on the road this morning in northern Michigan. Seth's on the road in Gaithersburg, Maryland. I think Craig is back from Hawaii, right? You're back from Hawaii? Is that right, Craig?
I don't know.
Are you back?
Yeah,
You are?
I'm back.
He sounds thrilled.
Yeah. Seth is in Gaithersburg.
Mm-hmm.
Brian is in his
All right.
normal place, and
Yeah.
I moved upstairs from the Hobbit hole to the Garage Mahal because I was
Yeah, I didn't quite know where you were because I didn't see the normal background. So I was
Yeah.
kind of saying, betting that you were back from Hawaii. And then, of course, Brian Cook, BC, is back with us, and the crowd
Hi.
goes wild.
I'm
Brian
sorry.
Cook, how are you this morning?
I'm good. I signed my kids up for too much stuff this summer, and the Livonia Public Library doesn't open until 10 a.m. So we're good. I'm not going to be here next week because I got one more week of the too much stuff I signed the kids up for, but then we're good to go.
Hey, man, daddy duty calls. Daddy
That's
duty
your
calls.
game week. You're all set.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think it's
All right,
fair
so
to
fellas-
say that people do miss you.
Oh, thanks, guys.
They do. People whine at me every week. Where's Brian? Like I'm in charge of him somehow. So
Not me. They're all like, man, I like you so much better than Brian. I'm glad that we just have you.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the Buckeyes think you're coming back because the hammer's about to drop. that's what the Buckeyes for forever.
a lot.
We should be we should be getting some sort of resolution if the reporting or if the speculation that we had been hearing going back months, even from Ward himself, is going to hold true, that we would hear against the reason that we'll be hearing something in the next couple of weeks. So something short of a hammer. Anyway, the question that I wanted to get to you guys is one that I kind of threw at the guests, the long form guests earlier this week, and it has to do with Michigan offensively in the with a new offensive coordinator coming to town, Chip Lindsey, a guy who has shown himself over the years to be a guy who can, from RPOs to spread you out to tempo, to be a very versatile offensive coordinator, effective with how he handles teams who want to load up and try to box him in, so to speak. There is a sort of difference with how he handles certain scenarios compared to how Michigan has handled those scenarios in the past. And it is kind of, if you hear some of the things coming out of camp, it creates a sort of interesting dichotomy here where, Michigan in the past has been a team that smashes when it faces teams that want to load up and get heavy and walk safeties down in the box. He has a different way of dealing with that. Now, in practice, you can certainly attack things a certain way. My question to you guys is, as we get into the season, how do you think things are going to go? How do you want things to go? Do you want to see a Michigan offense that leans into maybe spreading teams out a little more? Maybe leans into having some tempo in the equation? Maybe leans into, and Seth, we talked about this, the only way they see some more RPO if teams kind of zone them up some more, right? We'll see if teams kind of react that way. But if they lean into some more RPO, now this all means that maybe we see Michigan do a little less of the smash, get heavy, run the football belligerently to the effect that we've seen them do it in the past, and to the effect that we've seen them do it in the past. That's something you got to practice to get good at. and you can say if you don't practice it, you might not be able to lean on it to the effect that you were able to lean on it in the past. So, do you want to see Michigan not lean into that, practicing that as much, and of being able to do some of the things that I'm talking about? Brian, I start with you.
Well, one of the things that I thought when Chip Lindsey came in is that he was going to be more of a person who's a passing game coordinator. He's going to be an offensive coordinator in name, but a passing game coordinator in spirit, because Sharon Moore, of course, was a run game coordinator here for many years. Well, not many years, but enough. And Michigan maintained a very strong ground game last year, despite having huge problems in the passing game. And so I felt like, you don't break what's already not broken. And Lindsey's job would be to look at his passing game and see what marries best with what Michigan is doing. And if you look at the personnel, I'd say that kind of argues for still going pretty heavy a lot of the time. You still have Max Bredesen, you have Jalen Hoffman who's making noise, you have a ton of tight ends, and you don't have a lot of wide receivers who are established or feel like they'll be plus players this year. Now you do have a bona fide slot receiver in Samaj Morgan, which would argue for going more spread. But one of the strengths of those late Harbaugh teams is they could kind of pick and choose based on what the opponent is, but their base was always smash. And I feel like you bring in Justice Haynes from Alabama, you have Jordan Marshall, you have an offensive line that's been built to do this kind of stuff. I'm not sure that the offense is going to look worlds different than it did last year, especially because if you dive into Chip Lindsey's tendencies as an offensive coordinator, they're not particularly screen focused. He's had a reputation as a guy who asks for a lot of screens, but that doesn't really show up if you go into Pro Football Focus and you look at his tenure at UNC. There aren't really. It's not like you looking at Dylan Gabriel stats for Oregon last year, where it was just dink and dunk all over the place. He's more of a vertical passer, and I think that's something that you're going to see, and I think that's a good thing, because for the past, I don't know, Seth, what do you say, 6 years, I've been complaining about a lack of play action in the offense.
At least it goes back to Shea Patterson, so
right. So
gotta be longer than that.
I've always felt that if you have a heavy run game like Michigan, you should be taking a lot of play action shots over the top, and that's what I'm hoping to see is something that feels similar to what Michigan did a year ago. But you have Donovan McCulley, you have a guy in Samaj Morgan who I think will be able to break open deep from time to time. So I want to see heavy run game and then shots downfield, because Michigan, Davis Warren was dead last year in percentage of attempts downfield in 20 plus yards downfield in the Power Four. That was 7% of his attempts. And I know Michigan had pass protection issues, and Warren was a walk-on who may not have Bryce Underwood's arm, but now you have Bryce Underwood. Hopefully you've resolved some of those pass protection issues. And for me, something similar to last year, but with more ability to go over the top to kind of loosen up that box.
Yeah, and you start with who you got, right? So Brian mentioned you got Bredesen. You're not gonna not smash when you got that guy, and Jalen Hoffman is someone who gives you a lot of different looks from a smash look. You also got Marlon Klein, who's he's a fast guy, but you haven't seen him as a receiver that much. You've seen him as a good blocker. So you look at that 2023 team, and I'm not comparing this offense to the 2023 offense, but when you look at what they were really good at, what they hang their hat on, it was running off their tight ends. And that's really kind of what this team is built to. You got Evan Link at left tackle. I know you were trying to make Blake Frazier happen, Sam, but we kind of felt that it was going to be another year for that guy. And they're having Babalola try out there too. And I don't really think that they're going to go with a true freshman right out of the gate at left tackle. So Evan Link is your left tackle. Well, now you're kind of forced to be that smash team again, just because of who your people are. And that's what this team was built to do in the first place. And that's, why you have two great running backs. That's what everyone's here to do. Plus, you got a freshman quarterback. You don't want to expose him that much. And the more you are running the ball, the better your pass protection is going to be, because you're going to be in a better short down. If you can get to 3rd and 4, you can still run the ball, because you can still run the ball. If you're going to get to 4th and 2, you're going to convert, or 4th and 1, you're going to convert. So they have if they stay on track, if they stay on who they are. But this goes back years, but the 2022 TCU game, we got to the end of that, and they only had, I think, 3 or 5 play action passes when those safeties were screaming down like crazy. So you do have to have that. And last year, they just didn't have that threat. Safeties knew if you could just go after some Hodge Morgan, and it didn't matter. They weren't going to hit you deep. And that's really got to be the difference this year. And that's what Chip Lindsey's done. If you look at his career, he followed Gus Malzahn around a lot, and Malzahn is a run guy, right? He's an option guy, but he's a run guy. And what Lindsey would do is he'd kind of show up wherever and see what you're doing and say, okay, here's the passing game that I can install that works with what you're doing. And I'm pretty sure that's what Michigan was looking for in an offensive coordinator. I'm sure that's what they saw in Chip Lindsey, and I'm pretty sure that that's what they're going to install. So, yes, passing more than last year, but we're not talking about overhauling the offense.
I liked what Marshall said, Jordan Marshall said in this interview. I don't know if it was with you, Sam, or someone else, but he said that his exact words was that the offense is going to be, quote, scary. Now, scary could be two things, I suspect. There's an element of the Oracle of Delphi in that one, but I assume he meant scary good. And he also mentioned that the offense would be more balanced. And I think you've got a sort of tension between Sharon, who my guess is would just like to pound you into oblivion, and which I kind of like, and Lindsey, who's more of a pass guy. I think there's a good chance the offense will be more balanced. I agree with Brian on play action. It's been frustrating to see so little play action in the Michigan offense. I think we'll see more of that. It's interesting. I got into a debate with David Nasternak about this, where he felt we were going to be more of a screen team. I said, we haven't been a screen team since A-Train was here. And I'm not sure that that's going to change overnight, even with Chip Lindsey. And so I'm guessing we will see more play action. We will see more balance. I hope we continue to see a lot of plays on fourth down, including passing. And so I'm excited about as one of you guys said, the marriage between Sharon and Chip, because I think it may end up with a nice, coherent offense. Now, whether you have the pieces to make it go, freshman quarterback, problematic offensive line is another question. But when you've got a freshman quarterback and a problematic offensive line, you've always got a problem, no matter what you're doing. If that's, they're going to have to show they can play. The one other thing, small thing maybe, is that Michigan just can't go out and pound it. They just got a commitment from Peter Burke, I think. Mm-hmm. I looked at his tape. He's really good. He is a legitimate quarterback coming in the 2027 class. I think he delayed a year. I think he delayed for a reason, probably because we got Underwood here, and but he's gonna. I believe he'll be a real high level quarterback. So Michigan's going to have to convince people that no, we really do have a pass game. And they are recruiting well at wide receiver. So my guess is that when Marshall says this is going to be a more balanced team, I think it will be. And that's certainly the intent.
So here's the thing, and forgive me if I'm going in and out, bear with me here in Northern Michigan. I'll try to be succinct, which is a struggle for me. But if you were to go to practice, Seth, you wouldn't think Michigan was going to be a pounded team. That's not what they look like in practice.
Okay.
Well, I don't think that signals a change in philosophy, though. I think what it signals is that they're working. They're working the elements of Chip that they want to implement in the offense. knowing that this is what they need work on, feeling like, hey, they got the base stuff, like they have the heavy stuff, they have the identity stuff that they don't need to practice as much. Now they need to practice it, right? And I think as they get closer to game plan installation, they'll probably into that. But
Yeah, there's
go
we're I
ahead.
mean, let's define what we're talking about. There's a lot. You could pass 3 times successfully on a called play call. That's a pass when you don't have to in a game next year, and it will be more than we were passing last year. They they almost like took it all out of the offense until they had to, and that was they still managed to move the ball sometimes, but they. That's not what they could do last year because they didn't have a quarterback. Now you got a freshman quarterback. It's a huge leap from where we were, right? Probably something more like the 2021 offense or the 2023 offense when JJ was a little bit hurt, where you're not, where you have a passing game. And yeah, fine. You go to practice, I'm sure they're passing. I'm sure also that passing game is based off of the running game. Because why would you not? Like I said, you have Max Bredesen. You're going to be starting Evan Link at left tackle most likely. You have Marlon Klein. You have Justice Haynes. You have Jordan Marshall. And you have a freshman quarterback who can also run, by the way. And that was one thing. I don't know if you want to turn the conversation around a little bit, but one of the things that Sharon Moore said to you when you guys did those interviews was that if you run your quarterback, you ought to have a second. And I jumped at that one because we've been over this, and there's been studies, and there has been that running your quarterback is not actually exposing him to that much injury. You get small injuries, right? But your big injuries to quarterbacks are shoulder injuries because their arm is extended and they get hit. If when you hit your shoulder as a runner, you got a big pad behind it. It's not going to be the same kind of damage. So, you have his legs as a real threat, and that's one way that you really can take the pressure off of his passing. And I just get the sense that Michigan just doesn't want to use it. That like they just aren't in that mindset, and they're just going to talk themselves out of using one of their better threats that would actually function really well in their offense. I don't know what you guys think.
Well, like it does make a little bit of sense to have that option where you have Samaj running a screen, and it's a simple throw for a freshman quarterback to make. I think it's a thing that makes sense to have in the playbook. Like there is going to be a situation this year where Michigan is going to have to spread it out, and I'm glad they're practicing in that. But fundamentally, what does this team look like? It looks like a Lloyd Carr team, right? Like I'm expecting to have a very buttoned up offense that we complain about a lot because it's just like, okay, we're running the ball and then it's 3rd and long and we're trying to get a first down and it's not working out very well. And then we get to punt, and sometimes punting is winning, right? And like Michigan won against Ohio State 13-10 last year, right? Punting can be winning. Now, I don't want the offense to be last year's offense, of course, but I do think that you're talking about a freshman quarterback with some leaky pass protection. And the thing that makes the most sense is to run a 1990s style offense and just kind of like slow the game down and let, Underwood pick his spots while you rely heavily on the ground game and your defense. Like, Kirk Ferentz could coach this team pretty well, I think. Well, sorry, I didn't mean to wish that upon any of us. that's
Lloyd Carr is somewhere going, yes, he could. You should have hired him.
That's true. But like, I look at this team and I'm like, yeah, I want a boring offense. I want an offense that is a little sluggish up and down the field. And I know you can't really get away with that as much as you could back 30 years ago. But to me, that's the way forward when you're going to for sure start a true freshman quarterback. Is he 18 yet, Sam, or is he still 17?
No. Yeah. He's I think his birthday is coming up in a few days.
Okay, so he's not just a true freshman quarterback. He's a Karis LeVert true freshman quarterback where he's super young. Like, we're going to have some bumps this year. And I think this year for Bryce Underwood is just about getting his feet under him. And the team is structured around him that's a possibility. That's kind of the way forward I see for the season.
You know, the argument for that one too is the fact the defense should be pretty good. Which helps an offense that may be sputtering a bit, but still, I I'd like to see an offense that is more balanced. Now, maybe I don't know, maybe you guys can answer this for me. Were some of the offensive line problems last year connected to the fact we didn't really have any quarterback play? I mean, I know there's always going to be some level of synergy, and Brian may be best able to answer this since he charted it all. I mean, did you see an offensive line that was just struggling to bad, or did you see an offensive line that if it had an actual quarterback playing, might have had some hope? Or can you answer that? I don't know.
I don't think that there's a guy on this offensive line that you can point to and be like, this isn't an all Big Ten player, like a Zach Center or a Keegan,
right?
Or some of the guys that Michigan's had in the past, like the centers and stuff. Like, it doesn't feel like it's going to be that 21 to 23 run level, but you do have some big guys coming back. You have a senior in Crippen, you have a senior in El Hadi, you have a guy like a Phobie coming up who looks pretty good, and Link's got pass protection issues, but I thought he was decent on the ground. Like, I'm not saying that this is going to be like the lean on you kind of thing that Michigan was able to pull off with Corum and et cetera, but that still feels to me like the best way to approach it, because this defense is going to keep you in every game, and then you just need to make some plays on the other end without unduly exposing yourself to interceptions, getting hit from behind and fumbling the ball, etc. So to me, I've been advocating for spread stuff for years, and like, let's do all the crazy and run the quarterback. And this year, I'm just like, no, let's just it's Lloyd part-time, baby. Look at the
I'm glad to hear you say that. And again,
this is hard to believe.
Yeah.
Well, no, but like, I'm just looking at the personnel
I'm glad
on
to hear
this
you say that.
offense. Like, who's the number 2 wide receiver?
Fred.
Is it Fred Moore?
Yeah.
Fred Moore made one catch last year that was interesting, and I liked that catch a great deal. But if I'm like looking at who I want on the field, Fred Moore is not a super high priority for me relative to Max Bredesen. And I mean, I look at the running backs, and I think that's the strongest individual position group on the offense. Like, I think the tight ends are number 2, and so like, what kind of offense does that lend itself to?
Play action balanced.
So here's the thing. You guys mentioned Kirk Ferentz. When Kirk Ferentz's offense worked, go before the Brian
like 10
Ferentz
years
era.
ago. Yeah.
All right. But what was it based on? They would run stretch one way, and then the other direction they would roll out their quarterback, and they would give him, a 3-level read, and they had like a big quarterback who could run if he needed to a little bit, but really was just more about getting the ball downfield and being able to find those reads on 3 levels. That's exactly what you saw in with Rick May when Chip Lindsey was there. That's exactly what he was running when he was with Malzahn and other stops. That's kind of what if you want to look at like the base core, what's Michigan going to be? Threaten to run left, or roll out right, or threaten to roll out left and run right. But I think that they're going to be better running off their edges with those tight ends, with Bredesen, with Hoffman, and then you can relieve the pressure on those edges because you can play action and just throw it in the flat to those guys, or actually throw it downfield a little bit. Or Hoffman, you've seen he can run a slant, right? You can run real routes with him. And Bredesen, you're expecting him to hit you so much that if he whips by you, you could get the ball to him in the flat and actually get moving. And because you have to focus on that, because that's the one thing that they have where, Marlon Klein is coming at you, right? You have to react to that. You have to get on him. Because you're going to get blocked out otherwise. So linebackers now have to be motioning one way to stop the run game. That puts them out of the space that they want to be in to stop the pass game the other way. I think if we're going to just a base two-play system that Michigan runs. I'm not saying that's going to be their entire offense. When you talk about what they really can hang their hat on, Bryce Underwood rolling out to the right and having like a flood read where you can like throw downfield, because that flood read with his arm, you can space those guys out really far because he can get the ball there. And he can get the ball into small windows because he just has such a good ball. So that's really when you talk about two things that they can do well. Bryce Underwood's arm, where he doesn't have to do hard reads, just have his arm be strong and running off the edge the opposite direction. And that is an offense. That is a functional offense that can move the ball, not a top 10 offense, but that could get you from what they were last year in like the 100s all the way up into like the 30s. And opposite that defense, that's Big Ten title contention right there.
Well, that's interesting, Seth, because that's exactly what DeBoard and Lloyd did in 1997. They had a two-play offense. They ran stretch, and then they ran the
They didn't run
rollout.
stretch in '97.
Waggle.
They ran stretch
Waggle.
they ran stretch in the 2000s.
Well, they ran stretch in 97 because you had to run it to set the waggle up, and that's what they ran, and that waggle worked over and over and over and over because they could run stretch to the left mostly okay, so it was, I believe it's fair to say, a two-play offense and in some core. And it was, as Brian suggested, a Lloyd Carr offense or Mike DeBoard offense. Worked.
I said Carr.
What did you say?
I said Carr.
In a nutshell, quick, and I want hopefully this comes through the stream. I want to see Brian's dream offense be a contingency plan. That's what, because Brian's dream offense is kind of what they're working in practice right now. And I think they're working it. They're working those concepts because those are concepts that are those are foreign, and these are elements that Chip, some of the some of these elements that they just are unfamiliar with, and take advantage of some of the talent that they have, especially Bryce, that they want to be able to go to some tempo, things that they just haven't done a lot of, but aren't their identity. And you certainly don't at least for me, don't want it to their identity, want it to be a contingency that they can go to it if they have to. But the things that I want to maybe augment their offense is like what you're saying. Give me some more play action. Some more play action to take advantage of what they do now. And that would suffice to me what they need. And that's, you got to keep your quarterback upright. You got to emphasize your run game. I still think they got to answer the left tackle question, which if you start out, I don't think the left tackle question will be answered at the beginning of the season if they answer what Seth is saying the answer is going to be. I don't think it'll be over at that point. We'll see.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see. I don't think Blake Frazier will be out of the box yet.
What are you thinking here, Brian?
I'm thinking like, I remember last year when the right tackle battle was won by a guy who was not in the right tackle battle until he won the job.
Yeah.
Publicly, and how that didn't work out very well, and how this is a very similar experience, it sounds like, because it just seems like nobody's taking that job. And when nobody takes a job, then if you have more than one left tackle, you don't have a left tackle. Kind of sounds like.
Yeah. Well, the mistake they made back then, and we've seen them make a mistake again and again. Coaches do this all the time. Is they want everything, so they look at their tackles and they go, okay, Evan Link can't pass block. Instead of saying, okay, we're going to change our offense around his shortfalls, they'll throw a Blake Frazier or they'll throw Babalola in there too early, hoping to get that ceiling, thinking that they can coach it up. And that's usually a mistake. When you talk about like some of the biggest mistakes they've ever made, it was, Juwan Bushell-Beatty was probably their best right tackle in, was it 2017? And it took them forever just to stick him in there and have him run block because he couldn't pass block. But that was their best option.
Yeah.
and trying to mess around with Nolan Ulizio and whatnot. Like, that was just grasping at straws so that they could run the thing that they want to run because they want to be the program that can do it all. And I get it. You're going to recruit 5-star receivers. You have to show them you can pass. People will get it. Okay? As long as there's a huge difference between the passing game they had last year, which I remind you, the receivers had fewer yards last year than the Michigan receivers had in any team since 1973. You have to go back to early Bo to find a receiver room that was as unproductive as Michigan's receiver room in 2024. The difference between what we're going to be this year and what we were in 2024 is going to be massive. People still talk about the Penn State game in 23, but that was just a weird scenario. And if that happens again, fine. We'll recruit some running backs again. But they're going to pass the ball. They're going to pass the ball at a 2021 level or a 2023 level, not at a 2024 level.
Yeah.
Well,
we shall
I guess
see.
we just
need
have
to squeeze in a break here. Let's get in a break here. So let's take it right now, and we'll come back on the other side, and we'll pick up this conversation here on the Michigan Insider on 50 WTKA, online at thebig1050.com.
Clear on the radio.
Does anybody think Michigan's schedule is just brutal? Excuse me. Because of the travel element?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was looking at this. They travel every single week the entire year after the opening game. I mean, they go to Oklahoma, then they come back to CMU, then they go to Nebraska, then they come back to Wisconsin, then they travel across country to USC. And then I looked at Ohio State's schedule, and they never travel. They have very little travel in their schedule. And when they do, they have like a week off in advance or after. And I just thought, I looked at this and I said, there isn't a single week except for New Mexico. And then, where they're not traveling across the country someplace. I mean, they go to Chicago and then they go to Maryland and then they come back to Ohio State. I mean, I don't know. Maybe travel isn't relevant.
I don't think that's that big of a deal. Like, I think it matters.
Okay.
Like sports where you're playing a bunch of games in a week, and like, so you have get off game days and et cetera, et cetera. For Michigan, like, being on the road's tough because it's the road. But if you fly home on Sunday, are you really going to be impacted 6 days later for a home game? I don't see that really.
Okay, maybe it's just me, an old person that has trouble a couple of days adjusting to that. But
well, also, you go for like 3 weeks to a place.
That's
and you
true.
Get adjusted to the time, and they're just there for a couple of days and then they're out. Like, I don't think that's that.
So maybe it's not relevant. But I looked at it because we don't have 2 straight games at home.
No, it's the first time in for like forever. I think your point is valid that they have a road schedule, to Brian's point, where they're just on the road a lot. The road environment, they're just facing road circumstances. But I don't think the travel part of it is the Bears. Okay. They face a lot of just being on the road a lot. Not as many home scenarios as you'd like to have, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's the way the cookie crumbles this year.
I want to know how Nebraska got two home games in a row with Michigan. Because last time we played them, we were at Nebraska. It's
is that right?
Normally they kind of work that better. Yeah. Normally they pay attention to those kinds of things.
Yeah, because we went to that game. We went to the Nebraska game. Have you been to Lincoln? It's a very.
I've been to Lincoln, not for a football game.
Yeah, it's sort of a weird place.
How did that happen?
We drove cross country one time.
Okay.
It was just a post college, let's jump in the car and drive out and then go skiing kind of thing. And we decided we wanted to see Big Ten stadiums because we're nerds like that. So We saw the
The
outside of the
campus-
stadium.
The
So
campus is
Thamel just tweeted that announcement on the findings will come Friday.
Okay.
yeah. That's what.
Friday's a good day because that's how you bury nothing burgers, right? Ugh.
We'll see. We'll see. On those lines, anything going to happen with John Mateer?
No.
I mean, this is a professional game. I mean, Clase and Luis Ortiz have been
Back in 15 seconds, guys.
banished forever, it seems like.
he doesn't play for Michigan, so nothing will happen to him.
Yeah, if it was Michigan, it would be a big deal. I know that.
And that was not a conspiracy.
All right,
thing,
here we
that
go,
was
guys.
just-
Going back on radio in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the big1050.com. Sam Webb, Ira Weintraub on the other side. If you are a do-it-yourselfer, your one-stop shop for all your home improvement needs, our friends at Chelsea Lumber. They have 3 locations to serve you in Chelsea, Saline, and Bridgewater. You find them online at chelsealumber.com. When you do, you'll find great products sold by great people at great prices. They offer great service. Chelsea Lumber is where the home begins. You'll find lumber, of course, it's in the name, but also roofing, tools, decks, doors, windows, floors, work clothes, boots, everything in between. Like you heard me say, Chelsea Lumber is where the home begins, with 3 locations in Chelsea, Saline, and Bridgewater. Online at chelsealumber.com. Fellas, came across social media. Pete Thamel, of course, from ESPN. No surprise when it comes to the NCAA. NCAA has formally notified parties to NCAA infractions case that an announcement on the findings and punishments will be publicly released on Friday, sources tell me and Dan Wetzel. So the verdict will be read tomorrow, it appears, or by tomorrow, it appears. And I'm not expecting this hammer that the Buckeyes have been waiting for. I'm expecting far short of that. I'm curious what you guys expect.
Well, so any person who's been talking about this and has any idea what they're talking about says that the NCAA doesn't vacate anything unless there's an ineligibility issue, which there isn't here. So that's off the table. Michigan's accomplishments 21 through 23 should be completely fine. I do expect that Jim Harbaugh gets some sort of absurd show cause. Because, he left for the NFL. Do you think he participated in the process after that? I do not. I believe that he has many text messages he has not responded to. And Connor Stallions will probably be yeeted from the NCAA for the rest of his life. There'll probably be some fine involved. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but fundamentally, that fine will be paid by Michigan fans happily. So, and the float of a postseason ban, there's nothing here that would justify a postseason ban. Tennessee's head coach was, caught directly handing bags of cash to things, and they did not get a postseason ban. The era of the postseason ban is pretty much over. I think the last one was Oklahoma State for the Cade Cunningham stuff, and everybody thought that was ridiculous at the time. I just don't see anything here that's going to affect Michigan on the field.
What about a suspension for Sharon? Will he end up sitting out, games? A lot of the rumors are that he'll get a 2-game suspension, including on-field coaching.
I thought that was already something that Michigan announced, so I feel like it's likely
be a part of it. Yeah.
It's likely that will.
Well, they didn't announce it. They didn't announce it. That was part of their proposal.
Okay.
But they didn't announce that, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. Personally, I mean, I wouldn't have ever floated that as a solution. I would have said we'll appeal that and then we'll go to federal court on that part of it. The rest of it, okay. But we'll see. Certainly, if he gets more than a 2-game suspension, I would say Michigan should go to the mat on this. They made a mistake, in my opinion, by allowing Petiti and the Big Ten to suspend Harbaugh back for the Penn State game that year, and that was they would have gotten a temporary restraining order by the local judge, and it was a mistake not to fight that. On the other hand, it did come up with my all-time favorite T-shirt bet, and Michigan did win a national championship. So in retrospect, it's hard. Maybe the Regents were just smarter than everybody else. They could see it coming.
Yeah, we've had this one out a gazillion times. I'm not so sure. Just speaking to attorneys, and I know that you have your own sources, and I trust that. But I spoke to different attorneys about where Michigan was, and it really kind of came down to you're part of the Big Ten. As far as Sharon, I don't know the timeline. I don't know how long it was between when he deleted text messages from his phone and when he retrieved the same exact text messages, which were never gone, from the image of his phone. If it was a day, he should be suspended a day. If it was 2 weeks, okay, 2 weeks. But I don't have the knowledge of how that went down, because that really is the last question I have about all of this. I don't think that Michigan got any advantage out of Connor Stalions scouting ahead. Some of the teams he scouted, they didn't play Georgia, right? So they're freaking, oh no, he's looking at Georgia. They went on the schedule. That wasn't even against the rules. So part of what they're dealing with is the NCAA needs to look like they've done something to the big bad cheaters when Michigan didn't big bad or cheat. They had a little. So all they got really left is the perception that Sharon Moore was trying to destroy evidence by deleting text messages off of his phone. If it was he deleted the messages and then they threatened him and then they waited a minute and then he was like, okay, let's see if we can get these, and then somebody else had to get the image off his phone, that sounds different to me than the way I kind of heard the story, which was he deleted the messages off his phone knowing he had the image, and when they asked for the image of what was on there, he supplied it in the exact amount of time that they were expecting, and there was nothing to it. If that's what happened, it's really just that's what it comes down to, is what they look like. The NCAA needs to look like they've done something. That's why they'll have the show cause for Stalions and Harbaugh for not participating, and they'll have the fine because Michigan doesn't care about the money. But it's really what can they get away with? It's not anything to do with the crime or how much people were hurt by the crime, because if it was, this would have been over in a week.
Yeah, that could be right. On the text messages, I could be wrong about this one, but my understanding is they were only deleted from his cell, that those messages still existed
Yes.
in the cloud or whatever. And my understanding is also that it was almost immediate. As soon as the NCAA came in and said, where are your they were retrieved. This wasn't like a 2-week wait or month wait or anything. That's not right.
No. Yeah, I'm saying you're right. They didn't have to go get a forensic specialist to go recover these messages, all that drama that they put forth. He was able to retrieve the messages without any outside party going to retrieve them. So that
was it weeks or months or
I don't know the exact timeline. I just know they didn't have to go retrieve them. Okay. There were no methods, no measures necessary to retrieve the messages. Okay. The messages were provided, and there was nothing incriminating in the messages. Right. So that's the ultimate thing, the substance. What's the substance? What were you looking for? You didn't find anything as far. So again, if you're going to punish them for that, and it sounds like the punishment that they even proposed was 2 games, that's where I'm landing, is the 2 games. That's my biggest question, is which 2 games? I figured, and this is what we talked about, is the NCAA going to let Michigan dictate and determine which 2 games? That'll be something that I'm looking to see.
Well, I mean, this your point is right, Sam, because it goes back to the hamburger thing. You know, the NCAA apparently, I don't think Harbaugh did buy a hamburger for a recruit. I think something a little different happened. But Harbaugh said he didn't remember, or he didn't buy a hamburger for a kid. And it was the not remembering, or the claim that he wasn't telling the truth, that the NCAA was steamed about, not the hamburger itself.
Don't confuse the technical for the effect.
Mhm.
What the NCAA was mad at was that Harbaugh was not playing ball with them, which undermined everything the NCAA thinks that they have. The NCAA believes that they are the arbiters of who's cheating and who's not. And Harbaugh threw it in their faces and said, "You're coming after me for a cheeseburger. You're coming after me for like players getting a tour of the of the building during COVID. You're coming after me for coaches." Who were doing on-field coaching who weren't supposed to, when these things happen everywhere. Now, I think the COVID thing was probably something he should have taken responsibility for. And they should have said, yes, we did this and we shouldn't have done that, because they actually could put people in danger. Not a huge amount of danger, but let's look at the reality of what we understood back then and the reality everybody was facing at that time. And Nebraska self-reported the same violations because they did the same exact thing. They gave a bunch of recruits a tour of the facilities, and they got a little punishment for it and slap on the wrist. Harbaugh was like, "You guys are coming after me. We don't deserve this. This is stupid. We think this is like, he was not going to play ball with them." And that's why they went crazy on the cheeseburger thing. But Harbaugh was kind of right too. It's not like he's wrong. There was no reason for Michigan to be in their crosshairs except for they wanted to get Harbaugh. And that's why he got the show cause for that. And that's why they went as nuts as they could. But it's the effect, not the crime. The crimes are minuscule and things that are just, ubiquitous among college football. When the NCAA has you in their crosshairs, they have to come up with something. Because what happens so many times with them is they'll go after Tennessee and get nothing. They'll go after Miami and get nothing. They have the FBI hand them a massive scandal on a platter, and they get nothing. And they feel it. They know that they are becoming completely obsolete. And this is one opportunity that they have to not look obsolete. They're going to get as much as they possibly can. The problem they have is there's not a whole lot that they can get.
Well, those were good points. I think you're making sense on this.
Mm-hmm. I got to ask you guys before we get out of here. So Michigan picks up to get back to something that affects them recruiting-wise, back to some actual football. The Peter Bork commitment, you guys get a chance to watch him at all? What do you think of that pickup?
Well, I watched his tape and liked it a whole lot. He's big. He has really nice arm. I'm not an expert in quarterback mechanics, but there was nothing funky about his throwing. I can say that. It looked like his mechanics were pretty good. The only question would be, and I suspect this connects to his ratings, is that he's playing in Massachusetts, right? And that's not considered high, in the main high level football. It's why, for example, Mikey Sanderstill was considered nothing. Mm-hmm. And that's the only question I've got, is the level of competition. But yeah, he looks really good to me. And you've probably seen him, Sam. What do you think?
Michigan is like, this was the dude. Well, they had all these guys in. Uh-huh. I mean, the only guy you could reasonably put ahead of him is Elijah Haven. He's rated the #1 quarterback in the country. He's a different guy. I mean, he's a dual threat. You're going to play him a different style of quarterback altogether. But this dude was right there after that at the very top of the board. When you talk about as a pure drop back guy with some mobility, at the top of the board.
And size. I mean, if you wanted me to compare him to someone out of high school, I'd say Chad Henne. I mean, he reminds me,
and I think he's actually more athletic than Chad.
He's more athletic than Henne, but but as just a drop back thrower, that's okay.
I said Todd Collins because he's safe. And that's the one thing I noticed. First of all, people are all mentioning this already in the comments. He's older than Bryce Underwood by a month.
Yeah.
which is not weird, by the way. Quarterbacks, I know we don't have a whole lot of time to get into this, but quarterbacks, your limit of your career is how much you get hit, not how old you are. Very few quarterbacks are going to get into their 40s when their arm is actually slowing down and their physical body is not able to do it anymore. So it's smart for a quarterback to kind of delay as much as possible and come into college later. And he looks developed. He looks more like a senior than a sophomore when you look at his film. Yeah. He can spin the ball, but really he's safe. He's not a guy who throws a lot of interceptions. So that's a very good guy to have in the, after Bryce, right? Yeah. He'll be the backup to Bryce at 27, and then I think he'll be the next starting quarterback at Michigan.
We got to get out of here. Welcome back to Brian Cook. Thanks for bearing with my stream issues today, folks. We appreciate you all. We'll see you tomorrow here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTK.